this Independence Day, President Trump's self-proclaimed big, beautiful bill is now law.
And it'll bring one big change, or multiple changes for the country. Jason Calvi is here with what it means for you.
Bria and Sam, it's 940 pages, and it does a lot, and it's now the law of the land. It touches upon health care, the border, and your taxes. President Trump's law is officially titled the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. It renews the expiring tax cuts from the first Trump term.
What we were at risk of was seeing a significant tax increase averaging $1,500 for families in Wisconsin.
The Republican bill gives people at the top 1/10 of 1%, the richest of the rich, a tax cut of more than $250,000 every year.
It will also offer new tax breaks, like no tax on tips. Seniors making under $75,000 will see a tax break of up to $6,000. The new law also will cut from Medicaid and food stamps. The Congressional Budget Office estimates federal Medicaid funding over a decade will shrink by $1 trillion. The Wisconsin Department of Health Services warned 63,000 Wisconsinites will be at high risk of losing health coverage, including 19,000 alone in Milwaukee County.
What the president's going to sign is a bill that's going to kick millions of people off of health insurance. He's going to sign a bill that's going to make kids in our country hungry. He's going to sign a bill that doesn't allow for investments in neighborhoods like this all over the United States.
What it really does is make sure that individuals are looking for volunteering or are working. And so what we're trying to do is take able-bodied, childless adults of working age and get them and help them get back into the workforce.
The bill also invests in border security and pumps more than $20 billion in what's called a Golden Dome, a proposed missile and air defense system. The bill requires those on Medicaid work or volunteer. The Kaiser Family Foundation finds 92% of adults on Medicaid are either working or may qualify for an exemption. All of Wisconsin's Republicans in Congress voted for it. All of Wisconsin's Democrats voted against this bill.
Banks across the triangle are bracing for major impacts from President Trump's spending bill. They say many families are already struggling to make ends meet, and this could put them at further risk of food insecurity.
We are in the middle of the worst hunger crisis North Carolina has seen in nearly 20 years.
Tonight, one of the largest hunger relief organizations in the country now anticipating a surge in need as President Trump signs off on his tax and spending bill.
Not only are we going to see a worsening of hunger in our communities immediately, we're going to see long-term economic devastation that I don't think anybody is planning for.
Jason Kanawati Stefani is vice president of the Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina, walking me through the pantry, showing me locally grown food.
Everything from cabbage to sweet potatoes to cucumbers to all sorts of things. It's seasonal, right?
President Trump's fiscal bill marks a massive overhaul of SNAP benefits, putting 40 million Americans at risk of food insecurity. It cuts an estimated $230 billion over 10 years and forces states to shoulder at least 5% of SNAP benefit costs starting in 2028. Republican leaders say the changes are needed to eliminate what they call waste, fraud, and abuse to the program. But at the food bank, Jason expects for things to get worse as this bill becomes law.
Usually what you'll see is every evening this will be completely full, floor to ceiling of local products like these onions. Over here with products that we've gotten from local retailers like nectarines. But the demand is so high right now that by the following morning, this will all be empty.
Other agencies across the state say this measure could have a trickle-down effect.
We're highly concerned that rural grocery stores may close or reduce services, which is going to worsen what we know now as food deserts.
Lorenzo Wilkins with the Interfaith Food Shuttle told me farmers could also be impacted.
American farmers supply roughly up to 80% of food purchased through SNAP. And so that's going to have a significant economic harm to our small businesses.
Hunger advocates expect the impact to be felt quickly by communities across the country, especially since they say summer is the most challenging time when it comes to hunger. Now calling on the community to come together and donate.
That's why the Stop Summer Hunger campaign with ABC 11 is so important. Every donation made between now and the end of this month will be doubled, and we really need that support now more than ever as we're facing these significant cuts coming from Congress.
In Raleigh, Akilah Davis, ABC 11, Eyewitness News.
Studios. This is What's Next with Russ Mitchell and Sia New Yorker.
Breaking tonight, within the past 5 minutes, the death toll is up to at least 24 in Central Texas after catastrophic flooding inundated the area. Good evening and thanks so much for joining us. I'm Sia New Yorker. Russ Mitchell is off. Heavy rainfall caused the Guadalupe River to start rising early this morning while most residents were sleeping. There were also 20 girls unaccounted for at Camp Mystic in Kerr County. NBC's Ryan Chandler is on the ground tonight in Kerrville, Texas.
In Central Texas tonight, a catastrophic flood emergency. At least 13 people are dead, according to authorities, including children. And at least 20 kids are missing from a summer camp after a sudden surge along the Guadalupe River, north of San Antonio.
It's going to be a mass casualty event.
Authorities saying 14 helicopters are in the air. One rescuer dangling from a chopper, appearing to help someone up in a tree as flooding rages below. Cars lifting off the ground, swept away by the powerful waters. These steps leading to a house that's no longer there.
This is our house right here.
Another pushed down the road.
The water started to rise very rapidly.
Along the river, a series of summer camps. The La Junta camp for boys posting that everyone is safe. But some girls at Camp Mystic, trapped.
Now there are 20-some that aren't accounted for. We're praying for all of those missing to be found alive.
The county judge pressed on why the camps weren't evacuated.
These camps were in harm's way. We knew this flood was coming. We didn't know this flood was coming. Rest assured, no one knew this kind of flood was coming.
The tight-knit Texas towns across Kerr County are popular recreation areas. Len Clendenin and Rory Higgins were camping, asleep in their cabin when the water started rushing in.
Everything happened so terribly fast. There was mobile homes, travel trailers, cabins, vehicles, people in the water. It was devastating.
They took this video showing a building from the campground washing away. Their beloved border collie Ripper is still missing. Flood threats were in place overnight. Because drenching rain flooded the riverhead, massive amounts of water got pushed downstream. At one point today, National Weather Service data showing the water rising nearly 30 feet in 1 hour. Today's storm means one area park that normally looks like this is instead underwater. It was set to host 4th of July fireworks tonight. What was supposed to be a holiday celebration is now a nightmare.
That was NBC's Ryan Chandler. Our chief meteorologist, Betsy Kling, is here to explain how that flooding began to rise so quickly. Betsy.
We've seen it here in Northeast Ohio. You get incredible amounts of rain in one area for a long period of time, and you will have flooding. The last 24 hours, this is what the radar looked like. They had nearly stationary storms across western or central Texas, just to the west of Austin and San Antonio. When you put some of the accumulations on here, just west of Austin, there's San Antonio. We've got anywhere from 19 inches down to upwards of a foot of rain that just depended upon where you were. So Mason and areas west of Austin specifically had 19, 20 inches of rain that most of it fell this morning. But areas down here, there's Kerrville. Now that's a city that you may have been hearing about. They received almost a foot of rain just west of Kerrville, and that is where that Guadalupe River is. So Hunt is a city just west of Kerrville. There's two rivers that come together. The Guadalupe meets up with another river. And at Hunt, look at the river gauge. It went up to 30 feet. It was rising 5 to 6 feet in 15 minutes, and that happened several times. And so they had this incredible river rise, and this broke the gauge. The flood gauge is gone. So they have been kind of keeping an eye on how that flooding has been going downstream. Now, if we get a little closer in, this is called Texas Hill Country for a reason. Just south of that Hunt area, this is where Camp Mystic is. This is the Guadalupe River that comes in, and you can even see like tennis courts and pickleball courts and whatnot that's part of this camp. What you don't necessarily see on a flat map when we reorient things, you can see how hilly this is. And that camp was right down down in a valley. So we have all that rain that falls in a valley, and that water is going to move. And unfortunately, it moved very quickly. So we move from Texas flooding to the tropical storm now that is potentially brewing off the Carolinas. There are tropical storm watches that are posted now for the South Carolina coast. This is Tropical Depression 3. This storm system is expected to move inland and is going to bring a soaking to the Carolinas over the next couple of days.
Questions over the operation at the site dubbed Alligator Alcatraz. There are already concerns about flooding following 2 days of consistent rain.
NBC6 politics reporter Hansel Vella has been at the site and joins us from the Everglades with the latest.
Transportation workers digging holes across the main entrance. They say a sign is going up calling this detention facility Alligator Alcatraz. During and since the president's visit, as expected in summer months, those afternoon thunderstorms easily create flooding, and in swampy areas like this one, plenty of mud. Already reports of flooding inside the facility, despite what the head of Florida's emergency management said yesterday.
It is a fully aluminum frame structure rated for winds of 110 miles an hour or a high-end Category 2.
Today, a spokesperson for the Florida's emergency management told us vendors went back and tightened any seams at the base of the structures that allowed water intrusion during the heavy storm, which they say was minimal. The state says the Dade Collier Training and Transition Airport will have the capacity to house 3,000 people. It'll be staffed by about 1,000 folks, and while the state hasn't said who will be staffing it, we did get a hint at Tuesday's roundtable.
200 men and women, soldiers and airmen underneath Major General John Haas's command.
Last week, a spokesperson for the Florida National Guard told NBC6 they would have soldiers at the facility starting July 1st, who would be helping with site security and would be here as long as necessary. Alligator Alcatraz. Impact from this, of course, on the surrounding wetlands, still a concern for many.
The partnership with the state has been great.
Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons tells us the goal is to keep detainees here no longer than 2 weeks, where they can appear before a judge and be deported from the camp's existing runway.
Is the administration still going after the worst of the worst?
We are. But according to data reviewed by NBC News, almost half of those currently in ICE custody have neither been convicted nor charged with a crime. Back at the entrance of the facility, constant activity. You even see local food trucks going inside. And something interesting to note here, some businesses choose to block out their name and Department of Transportation number. We have asked state officials when we should expect detainees to arrive at the facility. They referred us to immigration officials. Those officials have not answered our questions. Reporting from the Dade Collier facility, I'm Hansel Vella, NBC6 News.
Valentine, Chicago fire crews were here a little bit earlier this morning, still cleaning up the scene hours after this all unfolded. After 11 o'clock last night, we know that 18 people were shot, at least 4 were killed.
We need more ambulances out here. We don't have nearly enough.
How many more ambulances are needed?
At least 2 or 3.
Video from the scene overnight shows the chaos as crews rush to the wounded. This happened around 11 near a restaurant and lounge here on Chicago and Franklin. A violence interrupter who was at the scene says the victims were shot as they left an event hosted by a local rapper. Now, investigators say a dark sedan pulled up when at least one person inside pulled out a gun and started shooting into a crowd of people outside the restaurant and lounge. That's when police said the suspects drove off. First responders rushed to the scene and took the victims to multiple hospitals. People who live in the area say they heard several gunshots.
So, has it been that bad in a while?
Now, police are still investigating, but our source tells us investigators believe multiple shooters were involved. Back here live in River North at this hour. Chicago police also tell us they are still looking for suspects at this hour. Of course, as we learn more information throughout the morning, Tanya and Val will be sure to bring you the latest from River North. Back to you.
Christian, thank you. And of course, there is a heartbreaking scene at Northwestern Hospital where many of those victims were taken. Stephanie Wade has been talking to families there. Stephanie.
Tanya, it really is just absolutely heartbreaking here at the hospital right now, where police just gave updates on the condition of victims here to mourning family members. According to police, 9 people were taken here to Northwestern. That is half of the 18 victims in this shooting investigation. Others were taken to Stroger Hospital, Mount Sinai, as well as Illinois Masonic. One woman I spoke to tells me her daughter was shot in the chest. Her daughter's girlfriend was also shot and injured at a mixtape release event in River North last night. Video from the scene shows multiple victims being rushed to waiting ambulances. This parent was here at Northwestern for several hours waiting for information on how her daughter was doing. She describes just the sheer chaos.
But her girlfriend got shot too. Her girlfriend told me that the ambulance, when they put in the ambulance, they took her out of one ambulance and put in another one. And she said they told her that they was transferring her here. But it was several people out here standing around coming to find out they loved ones was at Cook County, at Stroger.
And Val and Tanya, I have to tell you this heartbreaking update. We learned just moments ago that woman's 26-year-old daughter has died from her injuries here at Northwestern.
The smartest people on earth know